Now, Buckingham Palace is understood to be considering all options after King Charles and the Princess of Wales were named as the royals who allegedly questioned what colour Prince Archie's skin would be.
Well, ITV's royal editor, Chris Shipp, is with us. You know...
Breathe.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many questions to ask, isn't it? You know, whether... does this mean that we need to now address whether King Charles and Kate did ask these questions? What are the context of them? Should they respond to them? Because, you know, they're serious, aren't they, if they are? And how did this come to the situation whereby mistake, stealth, confusion, their names are in the frame?
So which one do you want me to ask first?
All of them. I'll sit back and you answer all of them, because I know you can.
As far as I can see, there's been no plausible explanation for how you can translate a name from an English version, which apparently wasn't there, into a Dutch version where it was. And I was interested in the discussion you were having earlier with Ian Dale, who knows all about publishing, and you know, he thinks it must have been in one of the manuscripts. Now, if you listen very carefully to Omid Scobie in his interviews, he says, I never submitted a book with the name in it. I mean, listen, it's for him to say what happened, but I didn't hear him say I never wrote the names ever in a manuscript. So and
could have been an early version, back and forth, well, all those things.
And somebody by error or by, you know, by whatever means managed to get that transcript to Holland, and the translator herself has been saying I translated the words that were in front of me. I didn't add names in there. So that's part one. Part two, do the royals respond? No, they continue doing what they do. I mean, you know, the royals, when they're in the middle of a storm, what do? They carry on being royal and doing their work.
Though, when it's all over the front pages and he's
yes,
there...
but what happens if you talk about it, and then you talk about it, and then the story's got another sort of 3 or 4 days later?
I was interested, Chris, though, you did feel, I was listening to the news last night you were on, you did feel their reaction this time round was a little bit more open than previously when they say we don't comment on these things. It felt like there was a bit more wriggle room.
You know, I think probably one of the last times I was in here was when Spare came out, Harry's book, at the beginning of the year. What did Buckingham Palace say through all that? Nothing at all. What did they say when there were 6 episodes of Netflix? Nothing at all. And if you actually rewind this thing to where the whole thing started, which is the Oprah Winfrey interview where Meghan and then Harry both said about these conversations that were had about Archie's skin colour, you know, the Palace took a couple of days to respond to that, and in the end the late Queen came out with that famous phrase, recollections may vary. So yes, what's different this time is the Palace is saying we're considering all options and therefore not ruling out some potential legal action, although that would be quite significant if they did that.
I mean, Harry has said that he didn't accuse them of being racist. He's said that since the interview. Where does that leave the Palace responding? Could there be a conversation between them? Do you see Meghan and Harry coming out and commenting on this?
You know what? That interview that Harry gave to Tom Bradby, again, around the time of the book Spare, was fascinating for the fact that he took this racism allegation off the table, effectively, because he said to Tom, I never said racist, it was the press that made that up. There's many things you could talk about that. For example, why didn't you ever correct the narrative over the previous 2 years of this alleged racism? So what he was saying was his family's got issues with unconscious bias, and therefore the passage in the book is about conversations, plural, that were had, and this is where the names King Charles and Princess of Wales come in, and that is what Meghan said to Oprah Winfrey she found uncomfortable. But we should be clear, Harry has, you know, said this wasn't racism. I haven't accused my family of being racist.
There is at the heart of this somebody who's written a book and has got an awful lot of publicity from this whole scenario. I know it was put to in an interview on Newsnight last night, well, actually, was this a big publicity stunt, which he denied, but you wonder whether, actually, part of it, he's sitting there thinking, it's on the front of every newspaper. We're talking about it on a national news programme.
You make a very valid point. Yes, there's a lot of publicity that's been generated from it, and I'm sure the publishers are not unhappy with that. What we can't, you know, decide from that is whether or not any of this was deliberate. But it's happened, and the names were first in print. We weren't saying them, and then, you know, very slowly it comes to a point where it's so easy to find these names everywhere and anywhere that everyone starts naming the King and Kate. And as you say, they were both doing their jobs. The King's just made a speech in the last few minutes all about climate change.
Dubai.
Not a single word in there, obviously, about his family. William and Kate we saw last night at the Royal Variety performance. Lots of questions shouted at them when they arrived, but there we are, you can see them now. But, of course, no comment about her sister-in-law and brother-in-law.
And your expectation is that they will continue like that?
As long as they can, yeah. All the conversations I was having with royal sources yesterday were the work continues. We're laser focused on. And actually, Buckingham Palace's a response from a royal source yesterday was, the King is focused on the much more important issue of the future of the planet. And I think we might all agree that is probably, at the end of the day, a little bit more important than a family squabble.
You make a good point.
Good to talk to you, as always.
Thank you for coming in, Chris.
Thank you very much indeed.